Beyonce probably doesn't need an academic to defend her star power. Her feminism might be another matter. But Brittney Cooper, an associate professor of women's and gender studies and Africana studies at Rutgers, co-founder of the Crunk Feminist Collective, her Twitter handle is @ProfessorCrunk, who is also a Cosmopolitan magazine columnist, is happy to do so. It's just one of many things in her new book of essays called Eloquent Rage, A Black Feminist Discovers Her Superpower, and it is out today. Congratulations on the book, and welcome back to WNYC, but welcome to the Green Space.
Thank you, Brian.
And we'll come back to Beyonce eventually, but I see the term eloquent rage came from a former student, and at first you didn't like it. Would you tell us the story?
Yes. So I was a graduate student instructor many years ago, and one of my students, Erica, and I happened a few months after she was out of my class to be talking, and she said, "I love to hear you lecture because it was like the most eloquent rage ever." And I felt some type of way about it because, you know, Black women get saddled with that angry Black woman stereotype. And I said, I wasn't angry, I'm passionate, right? And so she looks at me and sort of pins me in this way that Black girls do. And she said, "You know you're angry, Brittney." And all of a sudden I felt really exposed. But I also felt really empowered in that moment because I realized that she saw that rage as something that felt true, that something that she felt she could relate to and connect to. There was something authentic and sincere about it. And so I realized that my rage was real, was legitimate, and that it was helping me to be better at teaching, at being an educator, as opposed to diminishing that work.
Just another example of how teachers can learn from their students.
Absolutely.
As well as the other way around. So the subtitle of the book is A Black Feminist Discovers Her Superpower. Yes. Is the eloquent rage your superpower?
Yeah. So, you know, certainly I think it's the animating force of my superpower. Look, I really think that Black feminism is a superpower. And that's what I love most about it, that I think it actually has the ability to change the world. But one of the reasons that Black feminism works in that way is because it has allowed me to own rage as a legitimate emotion. Being a Black woman, being a person caught at the intersection of both race and gender, and thinking about that in a variety of ways, it has allowed me to embrace that anger as something that I can have control over and that I can use to do good in the world, rather than allowing anger to be a destructive force.
I guess it's the few days to talk about superpower. I don't think the publisher was smart enough to release this book on the same, weekend as Black Panther.
Wakanda forever.
Did you see it yet?
I absolutely did.
What do you want to say about it?
I think it is amazing. I think that America deserves, but Black people in particular deserve movies that represent us in all of that gorgeous Black beauty, but also that ask us to think about possibility, to ask us to really delve deep and think about what would have been possible for Black people if they had not been colonized, right? And what is the relationship between African folks and diasporic Black people? What are our political responsibilities to each other? And look, we also deserve to see Black women kicking butt, right? The Dora Milaje are amazing. Yes.
And in that context, Beyonce?
I mean, yeah, Beyonce is, as I say in this book, my feminist muse. And I struggled with whether to say that, because in this moment of everyone wanting you to be woke and be hyper conscious, claiming a pop star as a feminist muse probably seems beside the point. But what I like about Beyonce is that she has been willing to grow in public. I've been a fan of hers for more than 20 years. We're around the same age. And I think that there's an authentic thing that she gets about feminism that really is core for me, and is the political analysis matters. And I do that in my day job. But for Beyonce, what she says is that her homegirls and her friendships with women are central to how she understands herself. And I think that that's a thing that we lose, because we get the political analysis right, but we still sometimes treat women terribly. And so I wanted to reclaim a more relational sense of what it means to live out our politics, and also a joyous sense. So I love that there can be a relational thing, and also you can go shake your thing at the club, right, and listen to Beyonce.
And so to get back to the eloquent rage, you write that for the 10 years since you had that interaction with your former student, Erica, you've been trying to focus eloquent rage with precision. And the precision is a really interesting piece for me. I was thinking how unfocused rage might hurt the person feeling it, while precise rage might actually get something done.
Yeah, Yeah, look, I didn't always have precision with it. So as a college kid, I was a hothead. I would get mad at my professors. I would walk out of class. Or, conversely, I would feel misunderstood and have these crying, embarrassing meltdowns, all because of a sort of internal sense of deep injustice and rage. And so in being able to own it, then I learned that, one, my thinking becomes really clear when I'm mad. There's a way in which the stakes are very clear politically when we're angry. The things that make us angry tell us something about what matters to us. And so I feel like digging in there and then trying to use that to set political priorities actually helps. But I also want to be clear. One of the things I talk about in this book is that I also saw rage as a destructive force in my life as a kid growing up in a house with an abusive parent. And so I learned about the destructive power of it. And that is why I'm so keen to harness it. Not because I don't think that trying to suppress it is the problem, but I do think, for instance, that in this moment, we're experiencing the ill effects of white rage being sort of not being used against us in ways that are not helpful. And what I'm hoping is that by empowering other groups of folks, people of color, Black folks, Black women, to own the legitimacy of their rage, maybe we can have a different kind of conversation.
It's interesting, when Barack Obama was running for president in 2008, some Republicans tried to portray Michelle as a, quote, angry Black woman to somehow discredit the campaign.
Absolutely.
And yet when Trump's base emerged as angry white men, the media and sociologists bent over backwards to explain the root causes of their rage.
Absolutely. Look, Black rage has always been considered an illegitimate political emotion, and one of my core goals in this book is to say Black rage is legitimate. That is something that I've been writing about in the public really since the Ferguson explosion in 2014, is that one of the ways that we're going to move forward is that Americans have to grapple with the fact that if you give white supremacy free rein at the level of policy, at the level of rhetoric, as we're doing now, people who see themselves as human, who are human, and who have a sense of dignity are going to be upset about that, right? And when you then create no outlets for folks to be empowered in terms of political processes to try to create the world they want to see, then you will see that anger and rage used destructively. And when we see it with white folks, then we try to assuage it and think about it as part of our politics. When we see it with Black folks in particular, then let me be very frank. White people get scared. They try to suppress it. They try to police it. They try to make it look respectable. And there's a very particular reason why I call this book Eloquent Rage, not Elegant Rage, right? There's a difference in those words. I'm not talking about rage being pretty. I am talking about rage being clear and expressive. What is the target? What is the cause? What is the problem? What is the injustice and injury that has been done? Because we cannot heal that which we will not name, own, and confront.
Our guest, if you're just joining us, who just got the first sustained applause for an answer in the green space today, is Rutgers professor Brittney Cooper. Her new book is Eloquent Rage, A Black Feminist Discovers Her Superpower. If you have a question for her here in the green space, raise your hand. We may have time for a question or two on the phones as well at 212-433-WNYC, 433-9692. One of the things that enraged you enough that you sat out last year's Women's March was that white feminists didn't convince enough other white women to vote for Hillary Clinton. But the leaders of the Women's March were diverse. Why did you choose to sit that out rather than join forces with other women who were enraged at the election of Donald Trump?
Yeah, it's a good question, and one that I'm grappling with, because certainly when the movement for Black Lives kicked off, I have issues with the way that Black men don't always support Black women, but I still was in the streets. So I was trying to think about the intersection and why I didn't feel compelled. One, I was fatigued and devastated about the election of Donald Trump, and so I decided on the day of the Women's March that I was going to go hang out with Black people, just as a healing mechanism. I also think that the women's movement is going to last, and that there are going to be many opportunities to sort of participate. But one of the things that I really want to say right in this moment is that I'm not a Black feminist who wants to spend a lot of time pointing fingers at white feminists. I want white women to stop being racist. I think that that's white feminists' work to do if they actually are committed to the work of feminism. I'm interested in Black feminism because I think that it is the thing that draws us at all these different points of intersection together. And for me, it is a more positive, constructive kind of force. But I also think that even if you look beyond the election of 2016, if you look at many of the big elections of 2017, white women still voted in every one of those elections for the Republican candidate. Majority white women still voted for the Republican candidate in like the New Jersey governor's race, right? The Virginia governor's race, etc. So white feminists have got to see white women as a group of people that they can organize and that they feel responsibility for. As a Black feminist, I feel a responsibility for going into Black communities and saying that our racial liberation project is incomplete if we don't challenge patriarchy and homophobia, right? And so white feminists have to have that same analysis, that it's not enough to merely liberate women, that you've also got to challenge racism too.
That's two in a row. Let me note and promote that you will be at Greenlight Books in Prospect Lefferts Gardens tonight in conversation with Rebecca Traister from New York Magazine,
yes,
a white feminist who's been writing a lot about Clinton's defeat and the post-Weinstein Me Too moment, and also writes about women's anger. So that should be really a great conversation. For one thing, Greenlight Books in Prospect Lefferts Gardens tonight. Do you have the time? I don't
7:30.
7:30, thank
Yes.
you. My question is, do you see a way for there to be someday one feminism, or is that the wrong question? You know, maybe there just need to be diverse strands of feminism, or can we solve white supremacy enough, at least among women, that there can be sort of a unified feminism?
I'm not interested in unity. I think it's too facile. I think that there's power in difference. The great Black feminist Audre Lorde taught me that and thinks about that in ways that I find useful. What I think that we can try to pursue with each other is solidarities. And that's harder work. It's slower work. It's relational work. But look, I think that the reality is that I don't always want to be in the streets with white feminists. Sometimes I want to sit down and have a conversation with Black women about what does it look like to get Black men on board with a solidarity project. And that's not a conversation that all feminists need to be having, right? And it can become quite complicated. And so a bad thing happens when white feminists sort of jump into conversations that are about Black men. And I think that we have this idea that we want a sort of multicultural unity, but I think that the reality is we need to have more honest political conversations about where we are, and we need to figure out the places and spaces where we can support each other and show up for each other. That is going to get us much farther than sort of this kind of pie in the sky unity that folks like to talk about.
Let me take a phone call for you. This is Janine in Springfield, Virginia, listening in from down there. Janine, you're on WNYC with Brittney Cooper. Hello.
Hi, Brian. How are you? I love your show.
Thank you.
And Professor Cooper, you are amazing. I actually live I moved from Park Slope to Crown Heights. And I'm part of a Black women's health movement called Girl Trek. And our mission is to get 1 million Black women walking our neighborhoods this year by 2018. You got to come walk with us.
I do walk with you. I walk with you sometimes in Highland Park, New Jersey. Yes.
What? Girl Trek, what's up?
What's up?
The thing is, being a part of Girl Trek has changed my life because I'm also an artist. I'm an actor. And most of my friends were white feminists. And since I've had a safe space with Black women to process and to express my joy, my capacity for being an activist has grown 2,000%. My anger, though, I've had to cut out a lot of white friends because I no longer educate white women. I don't have time. I see that I need to help and support and be supported by Black women. And what you said by having a solidarity is amazing. Well, my question is, with Eloquent Rage, how can we turn that rage into precision so that I can work in solidarity instead of cutting white women off? And I don't cut off all white women because I have a lot of white women friends who are awesome and who are probably listening and do amazing work with. But I've cut out about 30% of my white female friends who've asked me stupid questions that I just can't. I don't have the time anymore to tolerate. I'm like, go Google it. So how can we use this precision to move forward to have that solidarity?
Thank you for your question. You're doing better than me because I have far less than, I cut out more like 90% of my white women friends. That's actually what's true. I've been writing about that conundrum, and I write about it in this book, that I grew up in a predominantly white school system, and I actually grew up having mostly white women for friends, white girls and white women. And then as I got to be an adult, those friendships became untenable because it's easy when you're a kid to gloss over sort of like that you're a Republican and a like deep evangelical in a way that's white supremacist. It's much harder when it's clear what the stakes are. So what I want to suggest is that I actually don't think that Black women have the responsibility to do any more emotional work around building friendships with white women. One of the things that I hope happens in this moment as white feminists sort of get their people is that they recognize that this is not about Black women's lack of willingness to be friends with white women. This is about Black women saying we're not going to do the emotional labor that it takes to be in these relationships anymore if it's not reciprocal. So the white women friends that I have, and I have just a couple, we commit to each other to do work for each other in a way that is reciprocal. And so one of the friends that I reconnected with, she hit me up and she said on social media, look, I don't want to raise racist children. And that is one of the reasons why this friendship matters to me. But she is also the friend who texts me and just says, I'm cheering for you. I hope you're doing good. I'm praying for you, right? So there is a way that she is bringing the things she can bring at a level of authentic connection, and then I can make the choice that there's some labor that I want to do around helping her to be anti-racist. And so I believe in committed friendships across racial borders, but I believe there has to be a negotiation and a real understanding that what Black women cannot be doing is emotional labor if white women are not really in the fight. In short, Black women can't want liberation for all women more than all women want it for themselves.
And Janine, thank you so much for your call. We just have a couple of minutes left in the show. I was surprised to read in the book that you came from religious conservatism. One line in the book about you at age 22 is, I was still far too much of a Christian zealot to be either pragmatic or feminist. Can you talk a little bit about your journey in that respect? Because that might have surprised some people who are hearing you for the first time.
Yeah, I'm from the Deep South. I grew up in the Black Baptist Church. My stepdad is a Baptist preacher, pastor, and I'm still a church girl. But what I am is a church girl committed to a progressive politic around religion and spirituality. One of the reasons for that, one of the reasons that I think this matters for feminism, feminism cannot speak to many Black women if it won't acknowledge the place for spiritual and the sacred. Because the reality is that many women of color, and particularly Black women, are an extremely religious demographic. So if we say that we think that feminism can change the world because it has a critique of patriarchy, then we got to be able to talk to Black girls who still go to church and who want to bring their Jesus along with their feminism. For me, those things are not incompatible. But part of what I'm trying to work through in this book and think about is what my journey to a more progressive theological ethic is. And I also want to push back against folks who think that to be critical or to be woke or to be radical means that you can't have a God concept, means you can't believe in a notion of the spiritual or the sacred. What I think it means is that you can't use your theology to beat up on people, do harm to people, injure people, and be violent. And I think that if you're going to be in a faith community, you have to be willing to own and be responsible for the violence that has been done in the name of the faith that you profess and proclaim, right? So I'm committed to that as a progressive Christian, but I'm also committed to being the worst possible Christian I can be.
And now that we've gotten all the way to God, we're going to end the show with Brittney Cooper, Associate Professor of Women's and Gender Studies and Africana Studies at Rutgers, co-founder of the Crunk Feminist Collective, and author of the brand new Eloquent Rage, a Black feminist discovers her superpower. And again, Brittney Cooper will be in conversation with Rebecca Traister tonight at 7:30 at the Green Light Bookstore in Prospect, Lefferts Gardens. That's 632 Flatbush Avenue. Professor Cooper, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
And thanks to all of you who came to the Green Space today. And thanks for listening, everyone. Brian Lehrer on WNYC.